So we're back. Okay. All right. Three, two, one. Welcome everybody back to the Build Different podcast. This is Gold Rush, episode 11. I've gotten to recover from a very crushing Super Bowl loss. Bill has had some good things going on over there in Miami land. We can't wait to fill you out in on everything, in between. We got a lot to cover. Bill, why don't you take us through what we're going to cover today? Because we got a packed schedule today.
Absolutely. So breaking down the agenda here, we're first going to just take a deeper look into that really heart-crushing Super Bowl for Tom. We're going to live it through the eyes of the Eagles fan who is probably donning that jersey for the first time since, but that's quite all right.
He got that on the
proud,
spot.
proud to be an Eagles fan again at some point, so why not today? We'll recap that, and then we're going to take a deeper dive into both the Chiefs and the Eagles in looking forward. We're going to go through all 32 teams here during the offseason. We're going to kick us off with the Chiefs and the Eagles. Then we'll take a look at the 49ers and the Bengals a bit later on. Before we do that, we're going to take a look into some of the moves that we really like and some of the moves we really don't like, or lack thereof maybe, during this offseason so far. We're exactly 1 week into free agency as we're recording this here today. So we'll take a look at a few moves across the nation that we like the most. We're going to take a look into some hot topics regarding one Mr. Aaron Rodgers, and we're definitely going to dive into this Lamar Jackson nonsense as he still remains without an offer sheet from another team. But we'll take a look into why that might be and how that could change moving forward to wrap us up. So starting us off, Tom, take me back to that fateful Sunday leading up to the game. Starting off, before anything starts here, how you feeling leading up to that game?
I mean, leading up to the game, as you guys know, I predicted the Chiefs. But when your team's in the Super Bowl, your team's in the Super Bowl. So leading up to the game, I'm nervous. I was way more nervous this game than the last Super Bowl that we were in. I think it's because the last Super Bowl we had Nick Foles. If we lost, it would have been, it would have been okay. But this time, if we had hands down the best team in the league. So, it was that going up against Patrick Mahomes, who's really trying to be the GOAT here. And I think NFL wants him clearly to be up there with Tom Brady when his career is over. We'll dig into that. But I saw it from a mile away, too. I felt like there was almost no way that Patrick Mahomes would lose this game one way or another. I'm not saying it's rigged. I didn't say I went over this on the last episode, but going into the game, I felt like the Chiefs were going to win, but the Eagles, what a great, beautiful team we had, HAD, and it's one for the books.
So game kicks off early on. What are we thinking? First quarter, things are looking okay, right?
Things were looking good. To give you the whole first half, we went into half up I think like 11 points. Things were looking good. The Jalen Hurts fumble obviously didn't really, help anybody, but it helped the Chiefs obviously. Thinking back to that fumble, the only bad play that he made the whole entire game was the fumble that, looking back probably lost us the game. But in the first half we were winning. We were still winning by 11. It felt good, but again, in the back of my head, I'm like, that's too much of a lead for a good quarterback, because good quarterbacks, they usually prevail in the second half of Super Bowl games, unless you're Peyton Manning. But yeah, it was feeling good in the first half, but still, that feeling of, this is too small of a lead. But it was a lead nonetheless. We if football was a one-half game, we're Super Bowl champions. So.
Yep. Unfortunately, it's not. So, yeah, 24-14 lead at halftime. You never really felt like that was going to be enough when you have Mahomes on the other side. You and I were texting about that exactly as it was happening. Hurts looked great. He looked like a stud. So, I absolutely understand where your head was at. I understand that you can't really bank on that continuing throughout an entirety of a Super Bowl until after it happens. But really, like you said, one bad play throughout largely the whole game. So outside of that, it was just a little bit of magic in the second half. As that magic is happening, what are you thinking? What's going through your mind while Mahomes is really just making it happen?
It was exactly how I pictured the Super Bowl. It's funny because I made the bet that was exactly it. I said the Eagles were gonna win the first half of the game, but the Chiefs were gonna end up the winner. Also, I had Jalen Hurts having a really good game. I had Patrick Mahomes under his passing yards, and my mistake was that I put two Chiefs defensive touchdowns, and then I had the Chiefs winning as well, but by 2.5, which they won by exactly three. But with the two defensive touchdowns, I did get it, but the refs called back, like they gave the Eagles another shot by calling the one misplay by Miles Sanders. I believe it was Miles Sanders. They ended up ruling that a incomplete play rather than a fumble recovery touchdown. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he started doing his thing. The Chiefs started, they started shutting down the Eagles offense outside of, Jalen Hurts was still producing, but overall the Eagles got a little stagnant. Stopped, overall running the ball, which, goes back to something that you've said on previous podcasts. Why stop running the ball at any point in time?
Right.
But also at the same time, Jalen Hurts came back and tied the game and scored 8 points on that drive that we needed, which was beautiful. Like Jalen Hurts was just from start to end, it was just a beauty. And then we lost. In my opinion, I don't think that flag should have been called. Yeah, it was holding, but also too, Patrick Mahomes was basically throwing the ball away. I mean, the ball wasn't even close to his target. I mean, I don't want to sit here and argue with anyone that says that it was a throwaway because he saw the foul, but it was barely, barely, barely holding. I mean, yes, it's holding, but not something that really is seen too much by the naked eye. Because even on several angles that they shown on TV, it didn't look like a holding. Besides the one perfect one that they got, where it was obviously holding. But to stop rambling here, it was a very exciting up and down game that I was pretty nervous about, and very sad that it ended like that. Because if we didn't get that flag, and they kick a field goal, and the Eagles get one more chance at everything, I think this is probably one of the best Super Bowl games we've ever seen. Win or lose from the Eagles, I still would have said, this was a top tier all time game. But the Eagles lost to the foul flag there, and it was crushing. It was
Yeah.
very crushing in a lot of ways.
Tough to go out like that. I do think ultimately it was a flag. And when you see a jersey stretch out like that from any
Yeah.
angle, you get it from one angle. If that's the ref's angle, that's flag, period. And do I think it really impeded his movement? No. Was he going to catch that if he didn't get held? No. But the holding doesn't depend on a catchable ball. It's not pass interference.
I wish it
So
did.
right.
Wish it did.
And the thing is, ultimately, it's a tie game at that point. Still, too, it's you wanted to have lived to fight another day, but remember, you're up against Patrick Mahomes. Overtime isn't really looking like it's in your favor at this point with some momentum either. So you really had a lot of opportunity to shut it down beforehand. And I think the number one piece of that Eagles team that came up empty for you guys was that defensive line. And that hadn't been the case all year. This is a historic defensive line that ends up really just not doing anything. I don't even know if Mahomes was pressured during the game, let alone sacked. So really, it's a tough way to go out for that unit specifically. But man, it's CJ Gardner-Johnson who had a hell of a year. Sucks to go out like that. So feel free, man.
And
You got to enjoy a great ride. So like you have on now, you have the happy face that even though I'm probably about to bring some tears to your eyes just making you live through that. You have a happy face in general. You've got the jersey on. Wear it proudly. Eagles had a hell of a year. I think they really played to their
Yeah.
potential.
And, just some final, quick thoughts to get up. The defense shit the bed. That was another thing. Like when people say, the flag, kind of ruined the whole game. At the same time, it's like if our defense just did its job, we still scored 35 points. Yeah, 35 points. Eagles still scored 35 points. Jalen Hurts had a performance that should go down as one of the best Super Bowl performances of all time. I mean, the guy had 304 yards through the air, a touchdown through the air, 3 rushing touchdowns to go along with 70 yards. He was spreading the ball perfectly, amongst his receivers. Devontae Smith had 7 receptions, AJ Brown 6, Dallas Goedert 6. He even got 4 to Gainwell for, whatever reason. But Jalen Hurts did everything you needed to see. Like, because for me, I was waiting for that one moment where Jalen Hurts was just not going to be Jalen Hurts and it was going to end the whole Eagles season. Instead, he was Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl. So for that, I mean, I love that. I see perfectly and clearly why the Eagles didn't give money to their defense, and we'll go into that later. But man, Jalen Hurts, like hats off to him, hats off to the whole offense for clicking there because Jalen Hurts has shown that now he can absolutely carry a team if he needs to. I mean, again, the 8-point play that he made happen all by himself, alone. He's here. And he's going to be one of those guys that can win games by himself if he needs to. I mean, 4 touchdowns, it's insane.
Yeah.
If we had the defense clicking, we would have been fine.
Absolutely. And just to put a little statistic behind the defense shitting the bed there, the implied total for that game was 27-24 essentially in favor of the Eagles, in favor of the Chiefs. Line moved so much you couldn't even tell really who favorite was supposed to be. It ended up being the Eagles by a couple of points, but realistically, no team was supposed to score more than 27. Eagles getting you 35 points. That is supposed to be enough. And it's not really supposed to be that close. Those totals in the Super Bowl often pretty spot on. So at least on one side, for both teams to smash the over, made for a very exciting game, don't get me wrong, but not very exciting for the whole defense to have to live through all that Mahomes magic. But like you said, you actually took the under on Mahomes with the yards too. So they shut him down to an extent, but he could find the end zone at will in that second half. So it doesn't end up really getting the results that you need. But overall, defense had a hell of a season. So you have to chalk it up less on the defense just doing so bad and more just, damn, that guy's really good. So something you mentioned there, the NFL wants Mahomes to be the next Brady. They need the face of the league, right? Let's go ahead and dive right
we
into
can't
it.
count on Josh Allen. We just can't count on that guy.
We know that. We know that. So ultimately, we have Mahomes here. Do you think he catches Brady? Do you think he has a chance first off, and do you think he does
it? It's tough because I don't know if I could say right now because he's a little more injury prone than people would like to realize. He's battled a lot of injuries so far, whether major or minor or what have you. He's a running quarterback, or not. He's not the most mobile quarterback, but he uses his legs to extend. Right, he extends plays through his legs more often than Brady, way more often. But I'm gonna say no for now because Tom Brady again. He played till he was 45. 7 rings. The whole NFL literally ran through him. As where Mahomes, the AFC runs through him right now, not necessarily NFL. Because I mean, I also blame the Chiefs a little bit as to why he hasn't won as much as he has. But at the end of the day, it's gonna take a lot, and he's only. At this point, he only has 2 championships and 2 MVPs, I believe, or does he have 3?
That's a great question. Pause.
Yeah, how many ever MVPs he has. The statistics alone that Tom Brady has, it's going to take one of these guys a lot, to really catch Tom Brady. And it's going to be crazy watching a journey of anyone that even gets close. And I think Patrick Mahomes, he'll get up there, he'll get close. But we'll see. There's a lot of factors as to why I would say no.
Yeah, by all means, it's going to be fun to watch. But Mahomes has 2 MVPs. Then when you look at Tom Brady, then he only has 3. So
Yeah.
it's not that far fetched from that award. Then you got to count Super Bowl MVPs entirely separately, right?
I already think Mahomes is better than Peyton Manning. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just me.
ultimately, it's hard to argue. And if he retired today, he goes down as an all-time great just from his current accolades alone. And it's nuts, but he really is on pace. And
he needs a new wife, man.
Yeah, that's gonna hold him back. That's a legacy killer right there between her and brother. Is it too late to put that kid up for adoption? He needs to get a different last name, whatever it takes. Just get rid of both of them, and all of a sudden, he's a much more likable guy. But you made a great point. He's not going to be able to play till he's 65, like Brady's about to. We all know he's coming back, and he is injury prone. Brady was too, is the thing. Brady had a lot of these little, scratches throughout his career, playing with a hurt thumb, elbow.
I mean, what I really meant to say with Mahomes is just it's a little more consistent. Like, he's a little more consistently hurt. Because, Brady had his ACL tear, and then he had he had something here, something there. But, with Mahomes, I feel like every season he's been hurt.
For sure. But at the end of every year, when Brady was with the Patriots, we typically see at the end of the year, last 6 weeks he's been playing with a separated shoulder or a wrist or a thumb or whatever else, right? So I don't think it's rare for injuries to happen with that frequency. And you're seeing these things. It's not like he's doing it to himself. People are rolling up on his ankle or whatever else.
For sure.
It is the nature of the added contact that he takes through being a little bit more mobile than Brady was. So I don't think he lasts until he's 45 just on that stuff alone. But frankly, he doesn't need to at his current pace. So now let's take a look at what the Chiefs have done so far in this offseason. And then let's take a look at what they really need to do in order to get back to the Super Bowl and really win one. So just to recap quick and get us up to speed, they've re-signed guard Nick Allegretti. They've signed Jawan Taylor. They've signed Charles Omenihu, linebacker Drew Tranquil, and safety Mike Edwards. But they've lost Orlando Brown, Frank Clark, Juan Thornhill, Juju, Andrew Wiley, Kalen Saunders, Michael Burton, and Chad Henne to retirement. Goes out riding into the sunset. What better ending for Chad Henne than that? So proud of him. Former Dolphin. Didn't do as much for us as he did in one drive for the Chiefs. But hey, good for him all the same. So first off, just taking a look at that. Do you feel that the Chiefs have gotten better or worse just through the additions and losses here? I think it's pretty clear that they've gotten worse.
Yeah, it's clear to me that they've gotten worse because, when it comes to Patrick Mahomes' health, one of the things that I was, going to say was, they need, to build their O-line a little bit stronger and just keep it strong. And then they lose one of their best offensive linemen. Wide receiver, they don't have much of a wide receiver room to begin with, and then they lose their best wide receiver. Arguably the best. You can argue, so I think they've gotten worse because their defense is already, I think their defense lit up at the right time, which was, in the playoffs. But overall, nobody says good things about the Chiefs Chiefs defense, and then their offense is just powered by Mahomes and Kelsey's ability to do their thing, and then Mahomes to just do spectacular things. But if you really put those wide receivers on the field that they have right now, it's gonna like Mahomes is gonna like he's gonna lose a leg. I don't know. Mahomes is gonna have to do something
Yeah.
crazy because Kelsey's gonna be double teamed, triple teamed. We saw at the end of the season that Kelsey started to deteriorate. I mean, he was just catching the ball and then shoving it back to the guy behind him because he had a bad back. Shit like that is going to happen and Mahomes is going to blow out his ankle when you don't have the weapons to make it easier for them to. So if they go in with those wide receivers, this is going to be entertaining. Because what did Kadarius Toney become their best wide receiver? He'd at least be a wide receiver too, which is insane.
Yeah, if you look at what's left on that receiver corps, I didn't even mention they lost Mecole Hardman as well.
Yeah.
So their wide receiving core right now, they have Marquise Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was forgetting.
So those three guys, but they play with four receivers on the field at any given time. It's the four spread out. Sometimes they'll use some running backs and stuff, but still, they don't have another guy on the roster that had more than one catch last year. So not additions or like practice squad guys, anything. They don't have a single guy that has more than the catch outside of those three wide receivers. So like you said, it's going to be a lot of Kelsey all the same. That's no matter what they do. But there is still some time to reload. They have the draft. They have some free agents available, some trade targets available. There are some.
I'd like to see him get Odell.
Yeah, above it all else, I'd love for DeAndre Hopkins to pair up. I like D-Hop a lot. If they make that trade, damn, I think they're unstoppable.
And they can. They have the draft capital to do so.
They do. The actual salary capital.
Well,
that's tougher. But you can always figure something out. And frankly,
they figured out how to give Patrick Mahomes a 10-year ridiculous ass contract, so they can keep figuring it out.
Right. Yeah. And realistically, I don't think Mahomes is that selfish of a guy where he wouldn't restructure a bit if it meant bringing him some actual talent in that wide receiver room. Because as soon as Tyreek Hill left, it's just not been the same, given they won a Super Bowl with it. So they made it happen. But you can't tell me that that's a hand-picked cast from Mahomes. So I think that's what they need to do. They just need to reload. And they lost offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, who goes to the Commanders as basically a tryout for a head coaching job. He needs to show he can get it done without Mahomes. And that's going to be interesting as well. We'll see how much Bieniemy was really calling those shots. Everyone really thinks that it's all Andy Reid, but Bieniemy's been a big part of this all along. So I think we're going to learn a lot about the Chiefs in the coming season. But, I would like to see them at least give Mahomes a respectable target outside of the three that we had just mentioned. Because Kadarius Toney has also proven that health is of a large concern. So if he goes down, then Sky Moore and or Marquise Valdes-Scantling miss even a single game, we might be looking back at the Chiefs right before Dwayne Bowe got there, where there wasn't a single wide receiver scoring a touchdown while Alex Smith was quarterbacking for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So going to be interesting in Chiefs.
They have a lot of holes, man. Like it's hard to see unless they have the perfect draft and they figure out free agency. It's hard to see them being as good next year, but hey, a lot of people had doubts on them coming into the season, finishing fourth and whatever. So
exactly. And you can't really dismiss the loss of Frank Clark. He's been a pivotal piece of a lot of these championship attempts, let alone the two runs. So Frank Clark's got either the most or second most sacks in postseason history, I believe. And you let that kind of veteran presence walk, that's tough to replace. You don't really find that any kind of frequently. So I don't really like what's happened in the defensive side of the ball. Certainly don't like what's happened on the offensive side of the ball since that Super Bowl parade. But hey, like you said, A lot of people picked them for 4th place in their
It's
division last year, finished behind the Raiders and the Broncos. So you really don't know what they're capable of until they go out and prove it. But we'll find out. Now, flipping over to the Eagles. Let's take a quick look. What have the Eagles done since that Super Bowl lost? They've had a little bit more considerable movement, and they at least have some nice spotlights that you can point out, whereas Chiefs don't have as much. So starting off with the key losses, did lose Miles Sanders, Javon Hargrave, TJ Edwards, Kaiser White, Isaac Smallwood, Andre Dillard, Marcus Epps, Gardner Minshew, my boy, TJ Gardner-Johnson, and Zach Pascal. But they've managed to convince Jason Kelce to come back for one more year. They've re-signed Brandon Graham, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Boston Scott, Fletcher Cox, and Brett Tuff. They've also added Rashad Penny, Marcus Mariota, and Greedy Williams. Overall, do you think the Eagles got better or worse?
On paper, I mean, it's obvious. Anyone could say that we got worse. We lost we lost a couple big names on defense. On the offensive side, losing Miles Sanders, who just had a remarkable season, obviously isn't, what you like to see either. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm kind of fine. I'm kind of fine where things are at. Because again, what it comes down to win the Super Bowl is exactly what we saw. You can have as much talent as humanly possible, but it has to work in the biggest moment for it to actually work. So I think, we kept the key parts that we needed to keep. CJ Gardner-Johnson was a loss that I wasn't, too happy with, since it was only a 1-year, $8 million, dollar deal that he got. But, regardless, we have the draft capital. We have the draft capital. We're most likely going to go safety and get one of the best safeties in the draft in the first round. We still got a little bit more free agency to get through. I love what was the running back's name?
Rashad Penny coming in.
Yeah, I love the Rashad Penny getting signed, because if we again have an amazing offensive line, and he can stay healthy, he's electric. I mean, we see it every time he comes back from these injuries. He's still pretty damn good and pretty lethal with the ball. He just can't stay on the field. So I think, if the Eagles can take care of him, the Eagles were, the healthiest team in the league last year. They know how to take care of their players all of a sudden. Good offensive line. I think it's perfect for him to pick up where Miles Sanders left off. I think he can even have a better year, but again, it depends on him being healthy all the way through, which he hasn't even done yet. So I think we're good. I think we just got to pay Jalen Hurts, give him the contract that he wants, keep him happy, get a good slot receiver to play behind our 2 stars, and behind Goddard. And we got the cornerback that we needed. I love the Greedy signing. I loved him coming out of college. Hasn't had the best, start to his career, but I think it can easily be revived coming to a different team. And we just need to draft our defensive replacements. It's really, a lot of people are panicking, but we have the draft capital to replace who we need to on the defense, get young, fast guys. Because our defense was young last year too. That was a big. I mean, we had our veterans. We kept the veterans, but it was young, and it's just gonna get younger. And we're gonna pay Jalen Hurts, and we're gonna do what we need to do.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I have a hard time saying you really got that much worse. So I really like all 3 of those signings. There's only 3 additions, and given there are more losses, so of course it's tough to say you get better after that. But you get a team that has this much chemistry, and you keep some of these really key pieces, which is very hard to do for a
Darius
team.
Slay, for example, yeah.
Right. These are guys that we didn't really expect you to be able to keep. So Darius Slay, I thought was a goner for sure. But I knew that the priority had to be solidifying the trenches. They're able to do that by, talking Kelce to come back for one more year, but also re-signing Brandon Graham and re-signing Fletcher Cox. I think those 2 moves right there, those 2 re-signings, are bigger than anybody they could have added throughout the entirety of the NFL, because of that chemistry and just the absolute results that they've commanded from that defensive line. So, like you said, plenty of draft capital. They'll be able to figure it out. They'll be able to fill these gaps with at least serviceable players, if not better. They need to get younger too, right? This is a pretty experienced defense, but when you keep this level of talent and then you fill in the linebackers behind them to replace TJ Edwards and company, you know, they're helped out tremendously by a nice veteran defensive line. So I think they'll be just fine as long as they fill the right spots with their coaching vacancies, which I believe they did. They had offensive coordinator leave to go head coach.
We might get Matt Patricia.
They had offensive coordinator leave to go to coach the Colts. They had defensive coordinator leave to go coach the Cardinals. That's tough. When you lose both of your coordinators, that's tough. But they had guys on their staff that were being sought after for these same jobs on plenty of other teams. Plenty of very big head coach names were looking for these guys to be their coordinators that they named to be their own coordinators. So I think they do get to just reload on that. And then they'll be able to keep a similar system, if not the same system, right? And Vic Fangio didn't play much of a role for you guys. I'm thrilled that he's a Miami Dolphin. He was a little bit of an assistant, essentially, a special assistant just toward the end of the year. So some losses on the coaching staff. But from a player standpoint, I think you pretty much wash out once you look at the draft capital that you have and what you're going to be able to do during this upcoming draft. So overall, Eagles are going to be fine. I still think they're a lock for at least close to the top of the division and a wild card at hard minimum, but they're going to be in the running for that for a long time. Marcus Mariota, if Jalen gets hurt, he is a much closer fit to Jalen's mold than Gardner Minshew ever was. And I will never say anything that disrespectful about Gardner Minshew ever again, but you get it once. I think Marcus Mariota is a huge upgrade over Gardner Minshew. Like you said, Greedy Williams hasn't played to his potential yet. Put him in a room with Darius Slay and company, and he will be a better player.
James Bradbury, Darius Slay. We're probably going to get the best one of the best, safety rookies. Like I said, I mean, like, for as bad as this offseason really could have been for the Eagles, I think they've done everything right so far. Again, I feel like with the deal that Miles Sanders got and CJ Gardner-Johnson got, I definitely do think that we could have easily matched those and done better. But their replacements, I'm going to be okay with. So for as bad as it could have been, we're still in a spot where I'd still safely put us number one in the NFC East.
Absolutely. So a team that isn't necessarily climbing to a number one spot, but let's take a dive into teams that we think really improved during the offseason so far. It's really hard not to kick this conversation off with the Chicago Bears. Chicago coming in holding the number one pick, which they shouldn't have had in the first place. Thank you to the Houston Texans.
How did they just randomly got to this fucking spot? It's crazy.
It's impressive. Not in a good way for Houston, but it's impressive that they were able to blow that and give the number one pick to the Bears. But then they go ahead and they flip it to the Panthers. So they're able to flip it for not just the number 9 pick, not just the addition of DJ Moore, but they also get an additional number 1 pick the following year. And they also get like a number 61 pick or something like that. Yep, 61 this year, a first round next year, and a second round the year after. So they just add a ton of capital. Frankly, they still may get their guy if their guy is Jalen Carter, especially after he shows up extra fat to the combine. So this might be just the absolute swindle of a lifetime for Ryan Poles and the Bears. And they got better, not just there, but they spent money in a lot of the right places too. So they end up signing TJ Edwards, who we just talked about a little bit. They end up signing Tremaine Edmonds as well. So 2 of the best, if not the 2 best, I'll go ahead and say it, the 2 best linebackers that were on the market for this year. And if you think of historically great Chicago Bears defenses, whether you go all the way back to the 85 Bears or you think about Brian Urlacher, you're going back to Butkus, if you're thinking about Singletary, or if you're more recently thinking about Khalil Mack, no matter what good Bears defense you're thinking about, it really starts with linebackers. And they haven't had it since they let Mack go. So here we are, or well, Roquan Smith for a moment, but that defense went to shambles as well. So still reloading here at linebacker. They don't have a lot of talent elsewhere right now, but they have plenty of cap left. They have awesome draft capital all of a sudden. And they're starting to actually load up on some weapons for Justin Fields. So they get Deontay Foreman as well. They get Robert Tonyan in there. So now all of a sudden they have DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, and Chase Claypool at wide receiver, whereas they essentially had nobody going into the season. They have Deontay Foreman at running back, which might be a downgrade from David Montgomery, but they still have Khalil Herbert as well. Then in the tight end room, they have Cole Kmet and they have Robert Tonyan. So suddenly some weapons there. And then they're in a great position to do whatever they need to do with the draft. I really like what the Bears have done so far. Job is not done yet. This is at ceiling, maybe an 8-8 team right now, but let's reassess that after the draft because I think they could really make a bang there.
Yeah, I mean, I like what the Bears are doing because they have like realistically never been this aggressive. I go back to a time where I wish they were this aggressive when they had that Khalil Mack off defense. They had a really good defense there, and they just didn't build the team into what it needed to be. They just stayed stagnant. So I like that they're at least trying. Welcome back to the NFL, Chicago Bears. It's not the worst thing in the world. Bears fans, the crazy ass Bears fans are going to be back. I'm not opposed to this. I mean, their moves, I don't think their moves are going to like guarantee them anything, but at the same time, I still think they're good enough moves to give Justin Fields a chance. And that's the biggest thing. Like this year, you're going to get to see it. Either they're going to do really good, because they got the first pick, which means they were the worst team in the entire league. So either they're going to be good enough, and whatever, you got something in Justin Fields, or you're going to understand that Justin Fields isn't an NFL quarterback, and you're going to get to pick high next year. Because the quarterbacks in this class, I wouldn't really. I want to throw away Justin Fields for these quarterbacks in the draft class, and that's all I'll pretty much say about that. So, I like what the Bears did. Welcome back, Chicago. They got an A+ for me. Let's see what happens. It's heartwarming.
Fair enough. Now, what's team that you thought really crushed this whole free agency thing?
I'm going with Detroit. I'm going with the Lions. And maybe
No.
that's because I'm really trying to see this Detroit Lions thing through. But they have, first off, I like that they let Jamal Williams go after the amazing season that he just had? Absolutely not.
No.
But you're replacing him with David Montgomery, right? Behind a very solid offensive line, like overly solid. It's going to get better. They still have money to spend. They still have a draft to conduct. Like that offensive line, that entire offense, I think is good. And they still might get DJ Chark back. But if they don't get DJ Chark back, it's going to be okay. So, for me, I really love what they did. They bolstered the defense, which is one thing that they needed to do. They needed to go after, defense, and I like it. They get, CJ Gardner-Johnson, who is trying to prove himself. So you're now making, that team a little bit more hungrier. I like Cameron Sutton. I love David Montgomery. Again, like I just said, I love him behind a good offensive line. He's going to get to eat. He ate in Chicago. So, overall, I love it. They're really going with Jared Goff too. I think that was a big thing because the Lions could have just, done whatever, entered into the Aaron Rodgers pool or go after Lamar Jackson. They could have, trade up for a quarterback, trade Jared Goff, but they're keeping Jared Goff, and Jared Goff's going to reward them next year with a playoff appearance and an MVP, or at least a top 3 MVP finish. I think we have a huge season in store from Detroit. If anything that happened last year is to be bought into, which I think there's a lot to be bought into. There's a reason that when a team is, I think they were 1-6 to start the year, or 1-5, but they're still the best offensive team in the league, and then they figure it out and come, one short, one extra week away from not reaching where they wanted to reach. I think we can buy into that, and they're doing nothing but improving. So they didn't really need to do a whole lot besides bolster their defense. They did that. They replaced Jamal Williams perfectly. And there's still a long way to go.
Yeah. It's hard to look at that Jamal Williams loss and still say that I like what the Lions have done. He was more than just the leader in the NFL in touchdowns last year. He was an emotional leader in that locker room. You saw it in Hard Knocks. And man brought a passion to that team that not many can. It literally makes me sad to not see him in Detroit. And I haven't had that happen for a team that's not my own ever before to this level. So it sucks on that piece. But like you said, everything else looks very good. And this is a defense that gelled throughout the year. This is a defense that started out historically bad and ends up being pretty good. So to see most of that stay intact, of course, since it was so young, almost didn't have choice to. There wasn't really anybody up for contract aside from Alex Anzalone, who was a meaningful part of that defense's success late in the year. But hey, they got him back. So then you look at the only other real starter that is on their way out in Deshaun Elliott, and you replace him with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who you can't really be too upset about. So overall, yeah, I think the Lions get better here. And the Lions already really had something cooking here. DJ Chark, I think he's talented wide receiver. I think there's going to be a team that's very happy to have DJ Chark, and I do hope it is the Detroit Lions. But they don't get him. Guess what? There's some actual talent at wide receiver in this draft, and the Lions hold the 6 and the 18. With 2 top 20 picks, if you don't have Chark, definitely some options available at one or both of those picks.
And they just drafted Jameson Williams, who, didn't even get to play the full year, and he's going to come in healthy next to Monra St. Brown, who really took off, and whatever else they draft. It's going to be beautiful.
That's
and they got a good one, too, still at running back. So
Right. So a lot of sites are listing Calvin Ridley as an addition. If Calvin Ridley, who signed halfway through or got traded halfway through last year, is an addition to the Jaguars, then Jameson Williams might as well be one for the Lions because he barely
best
played.
Offense in the
Right. So through a considerable chunk of the season, they were the best offense in the NFL. So, I think they're going to miss Jamal Williams. I am worried about the emotional power behind that offense, but you're seeing Goff kind of come into his own as a leader a little bit. And you're seeing people have faith in Jared Goff, which hasn't happened since he was in college. So I think this team has a high ceiling, and I think you're right. I came into this thinking, when you told me the Lions, I came into it thinking, I don't know about that, but you sold me. I'm on board for another year of this Lions stuff. Let's do it. So
yeah, man, but I can't. We can't continue without just shout out to Jared Goff. It's back. Shout out to Jared Goff. I truly can't wait to see what he does. I don't know. It's like you. Like I've never because I'm sure you had that emotional attachment to Jamal, but for me, it's like I have this little emotional attachment to the Lions for some whatever fucking reason. I just want to see these guys succeed.
It's
really
Dan
badly.
Campbell. It's entirely Dan Campbell.
And then that's their coach. It's just it's a whole bunch of redemption stories just put into one team, and here we go. This is going to be good. The Detroit Lions as a franchise is looking for redemption.
Absolutely. They need it. But speaking of, bad teams, if we're talking about where the Lions came from, what team do you absolutely just not like what they've done so far in this offseason?
I don't know what the Los Angeles Rams are even fucking doing anymore, man. It's just they've lost everybody. They've barely gained anybody. Matt Stafford has committed to coming back. Their offensive line is horrible. Their offense, I mean, if Cooper Cup plays, their offense is a B at best. Their defense has fallen apart. They've all gotten old. Aaron Donald, I don't even think he has the same flame anymore. I mean, he's put that he's retired in his Twitter bio, taking it out, putting it back, taking it out. And for whatever reason, you re-signed Matt Stafford or not re-signed, but you picked up the 2 years of his contract, and you let Baker Mayfield just go to the Buccaneers. I don't know what they're doing. They've gotten significantly worse. I didn't think it could get worse, and then it just did. And they have no money. They have no draft capital. They just they're just here. And Matthew Stafford, I'm not gonna say that. I was gonna say, he's just gonna die on the field, but he's gonna get destroyed on the field, man. It's not gonna be
Worried
pretty.
about. Yeah. And if you look at a team whose only addition is Hunter Long, the Miami Dolphins' third string tight end, the Miami Dolphins, who were not top 20 in tight end production, and their third string tight end is your only addition for the whole team, you're in trouble. But I can give you a little bit of explanation as to what they're doing here. And it doesn't look like they're doing a great job at it, but they're offloading salary. This is a team that really sold their soul to the devil to get a Super Bowl when it worked. So it's tough to really bounce back from that quickly. Right now, on paper, they're saving $13 million in cap this year, losing, hold on, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, Bobby Wagner, Baker Mayfield, Taylor Rapp, Matt Gay, Nick Scott, Matt Orzech. All that, you're only saving
For only
13
13.
million this year, but they're saving over 60 million in 2024 with those removals. So they still have to eat a considerable chunk here, and these are all salaries that were set to inflate. So I do understand a little bit. They've gotten some return on some of these guys. So, they get a little draft capital back where they basically haven't I don't even know if they've attended the draft in the past 4 years. So, that'll be new for them. Maybe they'll, as soon as they get some first round picks actually in action again, this will be a different experience for the Rams. They're not going to be good this year. And that's really all there is to it.
Yeah.
Defense is falling off. Matt Stafford's getting older and coming back from an injury. Retirement's not out of the question for him yet. Just saying that. He is not officially going to be back until he's on a field with the Rams throwing the ball successfully, which I don't know how well he can do right now. And the Rams don't know how well he can do right now. So not surprised if that ends up being the case, but this is a long-term play, one that they have to make because of the small little box that they put themselves in.
Yeah, you're fair. It's definitely fair, but just damn, man, it's sad to see some of these guys go out because it reminds me of the Washington Nationals in baseball who just I want to say they sold their soul to the devil, but they fell apart very horribly after winning their World Series because they were so old. But whatever.
So here's the thing. Let's use that comparison for just a minute because I'm about to ask you a question. They fell apart, but they still had, a diamond in their rough there. Who was the best player that stuck around after that for a good little while?
Juan Soto.
And where did Soto end up doing?
Leaving.
A little too late, though, right? So Can the Rams learn from this and trade Cooper Kupp when they're supposed to, which is right now? Or do they hold on to Cooper Kupp and absolutely waste his prime?
I mean, it depends. Like they have to sit here and they have to make a plan for not just this year. They have to make a plan for 2, 3 years out. Like realistically, like they can't just sit here and say this is what we're doing for 2023 because they have to think about 2024. when they have that cap space, when they can make moves again, when they have all of their draft picks again. I mean, this draft, they don't have too many high draft picks, but they have a lot of draft picks in general in lower rounds. They could luck out. They can get really lucky through this draft if they keep all the picks. But I think, yeah, you gotta get rid of Cooper Cup because if this guy like loses his flair, he comes back from injury and he's not as good, or he comes back, plays good, gets hurt again. You're not gonna get anything out of that. And he legitimately probably should have been MVP over Aaron Rodgers. The first time we could ever call a wide receiver MVP. And I thought it should have been then. But also, you got to trade Matthew Stafford while anyone believes that he can get back on the field again. Because I also thought that by them picking up the 2 years that they're telling teams that he's healthy, come get him, maybe. But they gotta do they can't like if Aaron Donald wants to play more, you got to trade him too. You got to get something out of this, or it's gonna be very miserable for a very long time, unless you luck out in the draft. But as we've seen in these last 3, 4, 5 drafts, that is hard to do even when you have the high draft picks.
Right.
So,
Yeah. The talent's out there. It's just whether or not you can land it. And you got to have faith in your front office. You got to have faith in your coaches, people evaluating that talent. But it's hard to have faith when you're really banking on a full round of teams missing in the first round. And frankly, I believe full round of teams has to miss in the second round too. So that's going to be tough. But there is one team that has actually added less than just Hunter Long throughout this offseason. There is one team that the Rams are significantly ahead of by grabbing that Hunter Long. And that's the Baltimore Ravens, who literally haven't added anybody at all. So if you look at the Ravens, they with literally no additions at all, the re-signings are just Trayvon Mullen at safety, Justice Hill at running back, and Geno Stone at safety. Don't even know if these are really going to be impact players in the coming year. And their whole offseason hinges on one thing, and it's getting Lamar Jackson back in a Ravens uniform, which we really don't know right now if that's going to happen. So I want to say that this is a terrible, terrible offseason for the Ravens, and I think it's the worst. But there's a chance they come out of this as winners. So I don't hate the tag that they put on Lamar. The non-exclusive tag is important because negotiations have not gone well with Lamar since they started. And Lamar, being his own agent, there's no like behind closed doors in good faith meetings with an agent that they can bank on. It's just straight up talks between the front office and Lamar that just have not progressed. And the emotion of the player that you see on the field is the emotion of the player that's behind those negotiation meetings as well. So if this guy just doesn't like what the Ravens are offering him, this is their way of saying, let's take a look what everybody else wants to give you. But it's not that simple. There are teams that have come out and completely declared that they're not interested in this. And then the other ones just aren't throwing in offers right now, or at least not ones that we see because Lamar hasn't agreed to it. I'm going to take a deeper dive into that, but first I want your thoughts. Overall, Ravens offseason, what do you think?
I hate it. I mean, just give Lamar his money and keep moving, man. Like the Ravens almost went on a playoff run on that defense alone. Because if they would have gotten by the Bengals, they almost certainly would have gotten by the Bills based on how the Bills played, and how the Bills weren't able to pick up on anything worth anything to beat the Bengals. They didn't pick up on anything. I'm not saying they would have beaten the Chiefs, but it could very well have been a case where the Ravens are fighting to go to the Super Bowl, on Huntley and just a really good defense. And that's kind of the sad part. It's like you guys aren't willing to give Lamar Jackson what he wants, but you're willing to pause and put everything on hold for Lamar Jackson when you're still, struggling on deciding if you want to give him the money or not. Because if you're going to sit here and struggle on giving, him the money, use the money to bolster the team while you got a shot, because this defense is really fucking good. One of
Yeah.
the best defenses in the whole league, and you're about to just sit here and not give Lamar his money, but also not do anything either. So I don't understand what they're doing. I really don't. Lamar deserves the money, and that's a conversation we're about to have. But it's whether or not the Ravens will give it to him.
Yeah.
Because I think the moment that him and the Ravens are done negotiating, I think teams are going to pounce. But I think they're waiting to see, how much the Ravens are actually willing to offer him before another team jumps the gun and gives Lamar every penny of what he wants.
Right, right. So that's the thing. You're going to see negotiating in general is tough. If we find that the Ravens are currently offering, I believe the most recent offer that I've heard about was 3 years, 140 million with about 120 of that guaranteed. That's a lot of money, but it's a 3-year contract. The only guaranteed money over the course of 3 years. It's 40 million guaranteed over the course of those 3 years, each of those 3 years. But still, only 3 years. Whereas Deshaun Watson ends up securing a 5-year contract. I think what's tough for Lamar to look past is that the Deshaun Watson contract is an absolute anomaly that is only in existence because Cleveland Browns are the most garbage franchise to ever exist. And Cleveland Browns are going to do Browns things for as long as they're around. So you can't really look at that as the new standard. And just like you're not going to look at the Daniel Jones contract as the new standard,
But
which
that's the thing is like that Daniel Jones contract followed, and a couple, yeah. I
it
mean,
followed, but it didn't
I
have all
agree,
that guaranteed money. It's incentive laden.
right?
It's a good, solid spot, but you know Lamar wouldn't agree to that contract. It's not even close to Lamar territory. So there is a happy medium. And Lamar will set the standard whenever he gets a contract, and he will get a contract. But here's the problem. They put this non-exclusive tag on him. That means, just to get everybody up to speed, that any team can make an offer. If Lamar accepts that offer, they would need to trade 2 first-round picks to the Ravens to get Lamar in return. In addition, the Ravens have a chance to match that offer. And then he would not go to that team. He stays with the Ravens just by matching, not by outbidding. So not only do you have to give up 2 first rounders, but you also have to give up enough money where the Ravens can't match. Because if they do match, then you're all of a sudden publicly announcing to not only the world, but to your team and to the quarterback who ends up starting, that he's your little silver medal. And you wanted Lamar all along, and you didn't get him. So, hey, now we've got you, and we're so happy about it, and you're going to do great. Nobody wants to be put in that situation. So you can't really blame teams for not jumping on this because they want to see what their other options are first.
Absolutely.
I could see it happen on draft night. I could see it happen right after the draft. If a team goes through the draft and doesn't get what they wanted, if their guy goes a little earlier than they expected them to, or they tried to trade up and just couldn't do it, I could see it happening. But I don't really see it happening any sooner. And meanwhile, Ravens are hanging on the clothesline out to dry without being able to spend $1 elsewhere because they need to figure out what they're going to do here. Tough spot. Real tough spot, and not a good look.
It's rough. I mean, but Lamar Jackson, he deserves the money. I'm just gonna go out and say if he goes to a good enough team, he will bring a Super Bowl to that team. I mean, some can argue that he probably could have and should have brought a Super Bowl to the Ravens. But what was he gonna risk his health for this year? To the Ravens that have been literally dicking him along for the last 2 years straight, why would he go and put his health and body on the line for them when he gets to wait for his money this offseason. Because like you said, one way or another, Lamar Jackson's not going to walk into next season as a free agent, and there's almost a certainty he's not going to walk into next season underpaid. So either which way, he's an MVP talent. He's broken everything that anyone has ever put on him. Like they said, he was just a running back. He wasn't going to have success. Listen, I don't care if he doesn't win another playoff game again. Lamar Jackson is a generational talent that we'll be talking about for years. Obviously, you would want him to win a Super Bowl if your team gets him, but he deserves better than this. But I also think it's both Lamar's fault and the Ravens' fault because as you just beautifully explained, the Ravens put themselves in a corner. But also Lamar not having an agent to help him through this mess. And at the same time, just, you know, being as loud as he is on Twitter, so outspoken. I mean, I can see why some teams don't want to talk to him. So I think they've both just put themselves in a corner, and it's going to be a funny little, one's going to break a little, hole in their door. They're gonna be like, hey, you want
Right,
to talk?
right.
I'm
Yep.
ready to talk. Like,
There's just gonna be a note sliding under the door. That they're not even gonna
right.
do that much. But yeah, and just some additional points as to why it's gonna be hard for another team to offer up so damn much for Lamar. Again, 2 firsts plus an exorbitant amount of money for a guy that is pretty injury prone, honestly, and he can take a hit pretty well, but it's the non-contact stuff and these lingering injuries and the inability to fight through some of it, whether it's based on his actual being too hurt to play or by him not wanting to push through it. Who the hell says he's going to want to push through it under your contract? He
Well,
has
this is
shown that he wants to do that. So it's tough for somebody to really go all in on this guy. And he is asking not for you to just go all in a way that you go all in for any other quarterback. He wants it at a level that nobody has seen before. So just tough. I don't know if
and
he's going to get exactly what he wants.
well, here's what I'm thinking. Like, if I'm the team that's interested in him and he's interested in back, and you guys come to a conclusion of a contract, I would look at it as Lamar preserved his body for this. Like he's preserved his body to get through the phase of his career that he needed to get through. I mean, yeah, there's been two season-ending injuries that he's had where I think the timing of it and the media coverage of it and how non-serious the injuries actually were, I think he definitely would play through those on the team that has the confidence and the faith to give them all the money, to give them, the two draft picks. I personally think that's the way I see it. If I'm, let's say, I don't know, well, give me a team that could sign him because I don't. His market has been so quiet,
The one I
but
like for him to go to is Washington Commanders with Eric Bieniemy.
right. So for the Commanders, I'm sitting here looking at it as, Lamar has preserved his body and has preserved his career to this point so that we can then get him and protect him and get him everything that he needs. I mean, I know it's the Commanders at the end of the day, they're not good at getting anybody what they need. But at the end of the day, it's Lamar's preserved himself for this. He's 110% healthy. He sat through two minor injuries that could have turned major if he played through them. And again, I mean, I still feel like he could have played last year, but he didn't. He preserved himself for this. I think he's fully healthy, still an amazing football player. I think he should get whatever he wants, and whatever team gets him, I think they're going to be amazed at what he's going to do because he'll fight through those injuries now that he got his money. Because now there's nothing to preserve himself for. It's going to be all in, and maybe we'll see Lamar Jackson not have legs in like 3 years. But fuck it.
That's the thing, man. It's tough to say. I don't know who he is as a person, and nobody outside of himself knows. It's him and his agent that know his willingness to play through injury. So it's tough, and I don't know how much heart he has, and that's not a knock. It's just the fact that we don't know. So he could
Right.
have more than anybody else, but also a great business mind and looking to make sure he gets paid and secures generational wealth for him and his family moving forward. Can't knock him for it, but
Um,
we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what happens because he will end up getting hurt, and it's hopefully minor stuff. But I'm intrigued to see if he's willing to play through it.
I'm just saying he's had enough heart to listen. He wasn't drafted where he was supposed to be. He was called. He was slaughtered by the media. That no one gave him a chance.
After that,
Um, that's it. He had enough heart to fight through all that and win an MVP and be one of the best players we've ever seen. So I think he has enough heart to, play after he gets his money. But we'll definitely see, right?
yeah,
We'll
we know
see.
he can play through hurt feelings. We'll see if he can play through a hurt ankle. But
So let's move to another polarizing quarterback, and then we can give our top thoughts of free agency.
yes,
Aaron Rodgers. So to go from this sad situation that's going on with Lamar, we get some comedy, we get some humor, we get this beautiful situation where Aaron Rodgers, comes out of his darkness retreat and wants to play for the Jets, and it's the funniest shit ever because it's the New York Jets and it's Aaron Rodgers. Take me through your thoughts on all of this because to me it's complete comedy and I'm loving
yeah. So there are a number of different ways this can break down, and some are significantly funnier than others. Oh, first off, this guy who this is great. This guy who has hated playing for the Packers over the past several years. Hates every direction this organization has been going in since they drafted Jordan Love. Hates that they don't put weapons around him. Goes into a cave thinking he's going to retire and emerges on the other side of that cave knowing that
it. To
he
be a
wants
New York
to play
Jet.
as a New York Jet. You can't make this up. It's unreal. But not only does he want to play as a New York Jet, he wants to play
all
with
the weapons
that he didn't have in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is as confused as the rest of us, I promise. And it's impressive, but there is absolutely a working theory here that he is just looking to get the Jets to sign all these Packers, get his boys paid, and just kind of screw over Woody Johnson of Johnson & Johnson of a certain immunization fame. So who knows really what this guy's mindset is right now. I don't know what was going on in that cave, but hey, if he ends up going to the Jets' outlook is obviously very good. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is what he once was in terms of quarterback. I don't think he is MVP caliber at this point. He's not far separated from it. But I just don't think it's entirely him. I think there was a lot of coaching involved in making him what he was more recently, right? So you go over to the Jets, who don't really have a whole lot. They have Nathaniel Hackett, of course, which we saw how that went last year. But he's got a good working relationship with Hackett. He'll do fine, but he doesn't need to do much more than fine with the Jets. With that defense that they have and some of the talent around him, they have a team that can be feared with a serviceable quarterback, and he is well above serviceable for sure. So if he ends up getting traded, that's going to be fun to watch for Jets fans. But the Packers get to hold him hostage here. He has really dragged them through the mud recently. So I want to see the Packers hang on to him for as long as possible. I want them, if they're going to trade him like 3 days before week 1, just to really mess with the Jets. But I don't even know what's going to happen. So, Tom, over to you.
I mean, like I said, I've been a huge critic of Aaron Rodgers over the past few years, but this situation had just honestly has redeemed him in my eyes because it's just one of the. I love when funny shit. You know me, I love when funny shit happens. I was rooting for the Raiders. I was hoping Jimmy G got his shit together for the 49. Just anything that's just funny to me, I just love. And like this whole Aaron Rodgers thing, do I think the Jets will be good if they get him? Probably, but at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers is not Aaron Rodgers anymore. As much as anyone can say he doesn't let the media affect him, he's turned into a man that goes on darkness retreats, who just takes shrooms for the fucking hell of it and is so open and loud about it. His hair, his beard, just nothing looks, Aaron Rodgers-esque anyway. He's a completely different man than what he was like, 6 to 10 years ago. The media, the Packers, whatever have you, either which way, he's not good in the playoffs anymore. He's not that scary comeback from any deficit man that he was anymore. Even then, that stat was so overrated because, like 5 of those teams he made comebacks against were actually good teams and the rest were just hot garbage. So you'd expect that from a good quarterback anyway. But
Or
yeah,
Notre Dame.
it's funny. It's a good story. It's the New York Jets. The Jets have constantly been funny. And then you got Aaron Rodgers, who's constantly funny. It might actually be a match made in heaven,
Right.
and they win the Super Bowl, and it's just the biggest meme ever, or it'll be typical Jets and typical Aaron Rodgers bullshit, and they go down together, and Zach Wilson gets the final laugh when he learns everything. Well, I don't know. That's just if Zach Wilson learns anything from Aaron Rodgers, that'd be horrible. But
I want to
yeah.
see Aaron Rodgers versus Adam Schefter on a Jake Paul undercard in the near future. So I could see something like that happening. Who knows? I think New York's is going to absolutely destroy this man. And listen, at this point, kind of here for it. So let's see what happens. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to bring a lot of entertainment, if nothing else. So I do expect it to happen realistically, but I don't know, and nobody does. So, and that's what really keeps it interesting. A lot of uncertainty to talk about in a show that we try to share news. The lack thereof here is nothing but entertainment. So we'll share that too, and I'm just happy to share that too. So on to the actual news. Give us a couple other moves that we're going to talk about all the teams, and ultimately we'd circle back to this stuff, being that it is very relevant right now. A lot of signings over the past week, over the first week of free agency. Pretty much 80% of what NFL ranked as the top 100 free agents have found their homes. So what are a couple of other ones that you really like that happened so far?
I mean, I'm gonna let you take the first, couple players that you really liked. I'm gonna focus in on a couple of teams, right?
Sure.
First off, the Denver Broncos, the collection of moves that they were able to make, I love.
Crazy.
Sean Payton, comes in and immediately figures out the solution to what could have been a huge disaster, dumpster juice mess of a team. He's kind of moved some pieces around. He's gotten some big free agents. I really love what they've done over there so far. So Sean Payton, this is exactly what I said may happen. I don't want to say that I called the future or anything, but I said, Sean Payton is smart. He picked this team for a reason. He has a vision. I think Russell Wilson got his reality check. He's probably sitting there, maybe he's on a darkness retreat and he's just not loud about it, but he should go to a darkness retreat. If there's anyone that needs one, it's him. And he's going to come out of that darkness retreat and be a better man. And I think the Broncos are going to be a threat next year. They definitely have a very stacked team over there, especially after this free agency and whatever little they do with the draft. But the second team that I really want to shout out that not a lot of people are talking about is the Atlanta Falcons. So, they've lost a couple of guys, but instead of just, going with a full rebuild, which a lot of people may have thought was coming, they get talent. They get Jesse Bates, Tyler Henneke, back up to Sam Howell most likely. But wait, no, Sam Howell's on the Commanders, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Hold on. For whatever reason, My apologies. Fuck the Falcons because for some reason I thought they had Sam Howell when I was thinking of this. One second. Now I need to pick somebody else.
No,
Um,
you can say the same thing with Desmond Ritter and say might be Desmond Ritter, might be Heineke. We'll see what that looks like. But moving on from Mariota and really looking to find their guy in either one of these places or maybe with the number 8 pick of the draft.
yeah. And with the Falcons, they see blood in the water. The Panthers, they put a really random team together that depending on the quarterback that they get in the draft, if they keep that pick, it's going to be depending solely on that because they have a team around that quarterback that's very random, but it's still hit or miss. The Saints, yeah, they got Derek Carr, they got Michael Thomas coming back. I still don't believe in what the Saints have going out on the field next year. Um, and yeah, I mean the Buccaneers got Baker Mayfield and not much else. So. With that all being said, I like what the Falcons did. They didn't give up. They're loading themselves with talent. They got good draft picks. Pitts is going to come back healthy. A lot of it's going to depend on Desmond Ritter, but they got Taylor Heineke, who almost made the fucking playoffs this year, um, on a team that had Carson Wentz starting for more than half of the season. So I like it. I like what Atlanta's doing.
Yeah, big props to Atlanta. Like you said, it was kind of unexpected for them to be this aggressive, but they made some excellent moves. And really, if you hone in on just the 2 moves from the Broncos, 2 huge offensive line upgrades. McGlinchey's big, so that's it's interesting. And Sean Payton is not going to take long to really turn some things around. So I do like what's happened there in Denver. But I'll still be cheering against them for as long as Russell Wilson's there, if I'm being completely honest. So, if I'm taking a look at a few players, particularly that I like, players that I think are going to have a huge impact. First and foremost, homer pick, Jalen Ramsey, man. I didn't expect the Dolphins to be in the running for this as soon as I saw Jalen Ramsey was looking to be traded. And then I realized that that's the only place Jalen Ramsey wanted to be traded. So he took a hometown discount as if this is where he's played his whole career. Apparently took less money here than he would have taken anywhere else. And he puts out a hype video today that has my blood flowing. So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check out Jalen Ramsey's Twitter. A little fins up with a 5 where the S is supposed to be. I love it. I'm on board with Jalen Ramsey signing 100%. Really solidifies the backfield where we now have Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey on opposite sides of the field. Undrafted free agent from last year, Kader Kohu, who ends up being one of the best undrafted free agents across the NFL last year and really playing some impactful snaps for us. Doing a great job with Javon Holland and Brandon Jones back at safety, plus grabbing Sean Elliott. It's going to be an awesome secondary, which should really allow the front 7 to do whatever they need to do. So love that signing. Brandon Cooks to the Cowboys. Opposite of CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks is going to be great. He's had to be the number 1 guy on a really bad team for a little while now. And there aren't many players that have had 6 1,000-yard seasons. Brandon Cooks is in pretty rare company here. So, especially recently. So, Brandon Cooks, who still has a lot of gas left in the tank, it ends up bringing some veteran presence to a pretty young Cowboys offense all of a sudden, where Dak's kind of the old man. And now Brandon Cooks gives you a little bit extra veteran presence with Schultz gone, with Zeke gone. Yeah. It's tough to have that young of a squad really gel without it. So I think that's a huge move. Another piece that I don't want to like, but I really do, is Damian Harris to the Bills. This man can run very well if he can stay healthy. So obviously wish health upon anybody and everybody in the NFL. But I don't hope for what I know he's capable of running for the Bills. This is the best running back they've had in a while and gives James Cook a little time to develop. I think Harris should be the RB1 there. So we'll see. I think that backfield just got a whole lot more talented with the loss of Devin Singletary, game Damian Harris.
Yeah. And I wanna give a quick shout out too before I forget. The Texans, one hell of a job that they've done. I know, you lose, Brandon Cooks, your top receiver, and that's no slouch, but they are bolstering that team. They are spending money like their money is running out, and it's not even close to running out yet. And they have the number 2 and the number 12 picks. So the Texans are on to something here. I think if they get a quarterback in this draft that's redeemable, they have a shot at being decent this year. And with the new direction that this franchise is headed in, the head coach that they hired, they got a lot of wholesomeness all of a sudden after a very ugly chapter in their franchise. So, I love it. It feels like they haven't done anything wrong yet. After this whole, Lovie Smith and everything is now finally done and Deshaun Watson's out and JJ Watt's retired and there's nothing really to look back on for the Texans anymore. It's all forward. So shout out to them.
Yeah. We talked about the coaching hire previously, but D'Amico Ryans is going to be a great fit. I really don't question that in the slightest. Like you said, they're spending right now with plenty of spending left to do. Restructured Larry Tunsil. When you have that much cap space and not that many players that actually want to go play for the Texans right now, what do? You secure your young talent. You spend as much as you can up front. You front load the hell out of that salary to really set yourself up nicely. They're doing a great job. They're doing the right things the right way. So hopefully they are able to turn it around. Don't see it being Davis Mills, but guess what? Carolina's going to pick somebody, and there's still going to be some talent left at quarterback. I could see them taking a shot on a longer shot guy like Anthony Richardson, and that something like that could pay off. We'll talk draft plenty in the coming weeks, leading up to the draft especially. But yeah, I think they're going to land a quarterback. They could even trade down and still get a quarterback and be a better team for it. So looking forward to what they do. Overall, really, really great job by Texans.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I'm not really overhyping Brandon Cooks yet because I want to see how the Cowboys are going to do their run game this year because I think their run game led to the success that they got on the offensive end this year. I can confidently say that. Because that Zeke and Pollard duo was disgusting. And now Pollard's going to be coming back from an injury. No Zeke. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. And then Dak Prescott is very injury prone all of a sudden the last 3 years. So
Great.
we'll see. I mean, I could just be the hater in me talking, but I don't know. I love Brandon Cooks. I just hate that he went to the Cowboys. Same with Stephon Gilmore. I just hate that they went to the Cowboys.
Yeah. It's the one piece that could go to the Cowboys that I think is interesting. Just a quick update. Stephon Diggs has removed all Bills material from his social media.
Okay, here we are.
But he joined his
Stephon
brother
Diggs
in
is
Dallas.
back.
So, really unhappy with how things ended in Buffalo. I think that really throws a wrench in the tire. If they lose Diggs, I think the Bills are done. I don't think they come back from that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we'll at least get to see like really what Josh Allen is capable of.
yeah.
It would definitely be that, but I ultimately don't think Diggs leaves. Diggs loves it in Buffalo. I think he has a real salty taste left in his mouth. But the one thing that I wish he would do, is put that to use and just come back next year in Buffalo and just do your damn thing.
He's
I
tried that,
mean,
man. He's been that guy that stays on the field and watches the winning team celebrate. I've seen it
the
happen
last
at
like
least
3 years in a
twice.
row.
Yeah. And this year, that wasn't it. He's done with that. And, now we get angry Stephon, which, hey, maybe that ends up being even better. But we'll see.
But if you
You're
think
right.
leaving, like if you leave Buffalo, like what situation are you really going to go to that's going to be better? I mean, I could see like maybe a team like a realistic team that would get him. Because I mean, obviously you could say something like going to the Chiefs or going to the Bengals or going to the Eagles or, something like that would be, a
We
better
damn near
spot. But like those teams won't trade for him. So
we damn near opened this episode saying the Chiefs need to reload at wide receiver. So we'll see, man. I don't think that would happen, but if it does, you heard it here first. So moving on. Let's wrap up here with taking a look at two more teams that don't have all that much work to do, so this shouldn't take too long at all. Taking a look over at the 49ers, who end up in the NFC Championship, really falling apart due to Brock Purdy's arm falling off. There was a lot of activity. Obviously, losing Jimmy Garoppolo, which I think the team is by default better for that. So they did lose Mike McGlinchey, who I mentioned is a strong offensive lineman. So that is an unfortunate loss for them. They lost Samson Ebukam, Aziz Al-Shahir, Emmanuel Mosley, Charles Menahu, Jimmy Ward, Hassan Ridgeway, and Daniel Brunskill. Plenty of losses, but they did sign Javon Hargrave, which is huge. That's a huge, huge get for that defensive line. They definitely get better there. They got cornerback Isaiah Oliver. They get Sam Darnold, which is great depth at quarterback. I think Sam Darnold is better than Jimmy G, and I'm not trolling when I say that. And they get Clelin Ferrell from the Raiders, who I think is somebody that could get revived in the right scheme. So he showed some promise at times with the Raiders, just not as often as you'd like. Did re-sign Jake Brendel, Kevin Givens, Tayshaun Gibson, Ty McGill. Overall, Tom, would you say you think the 49ers got better or worse after those moves?
Realistically, the one thing that I feel is that God, how do I put that? They need to stop dicking around and get the quarterback that is going to deliver this team a championship. It's so frustrating to watch this team because they have one of the most loaded teams of all time, and they've had this team or this same kind of team for several years in a row now. But the one thing that has been missing has been a quarterback, which sucks. Because yeah, Jimmy G, but everyone trashed Jimmy G. I mean, I know I'm like a closet Jimmy G fan or whatever anyone wants to call me because I support Jimmy G in some very weird times. But Jimmy G wasn't the guy. Brock Purdy's not going to be the guy. Trey Lance isn't the guy. Sam Darnold sure as hell isn't the fucking guy. At one point, are you going to stop betting on luck? And are you going to just go get what you need, which is literally just a quarterback? Because Christian McCaffrey that you just got, he's getting older. There's going to be a point in time where he's not Christian McCaffrey anymore. And a lot of people thought that was going to be this season that we just had. Deebo Samuel, he's going to eventually start declining. George Kittle has already started to decline. The defense is getting older. You're not going to, like, these people are going to start demanding money. I don't understand how they don't sell their soul for either Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers and just go for it. I mean, you've done all these moves to put yourself in this spot where you're one of the best teams in the NFL, hands down, but you're just not gonna get you're gonna take your chance at either Brock Purdy coming back and being, anything close to what he was, which we don't know if that was flash lightning in a bottle or if maybe Brock Purdy's actually the quarterback. We don't know. Trey Lance, we don't know. He's a good raw talent, but that's exactly what he is, a raw talent. Someone that you're not really going to trust with this team. And then Sam Darnold, I guess, Sam Darnold, I guess he's a cool quarterback, but is a cool quarterback going to win you a Super Bowl? No. So we'll see. That's how I feel about the 49ers. Sorry for the long rant. But
that's fine, man.
Yeah.
That's fine. So to answer the question that I don't think got an answer during that rant, I don't think the 49ers did get better or worse with that.
I don't think they got better. I mean, I don't think they necessarily need to do too much. I just feel very passionately that they need the quarterback that's going to get them to the promised land.
You made a ton of valid points there. And really, I do think Darnold, this is the best set of weapons he's had in his career here. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
You look at any of his stops, he just didn't have anything around him serviceable like this. And he didn't have serviceable. Now he has greatness. I'm intrigued as to what Sam Darnold can do with that. And I think this is the most Jets thing ever to see a guy they draft to go on and win a Super Bowl with a team like the Niners. So I'm not shocked if Sam Darnold ends up really running away with his job. So it is Trey Lance's to lose, is my real opinion here. And I think they'll give him a short leash. But still, I think it's got to be Trey Lance at first. He's got the highest ceiling. But Sam Darnold, I do think, has a tremendously high floor, as does Brock Purdy. So realistically, I don't think they can go too wrong. But like you said, is it enough to get the job done? They've been
Whole
tremendously
bunch
lucky
of question marks.
all this talent without having to pay as much as they really should be for some of these people that are on the team. So for them to have this great of a roster for this long is unheard of. Props to Kyle Shanahan for really building up players, but still, the luck runs out eventually, and it's not quite luck if you can't keep 3 or 4 quarterbacks healthy over the course of a season. So whatever it is, it's going to run out eventually. But yeah, the ticking time bomb is going to either lead to a Super Bowl with a good quarterback or disaster at some point. So we'll find out there. Moving over to the Bengals to wrap us up here. So the Bengals this offseason, so far, they did sign Orlando Brown. They signed Cody Ford. They signed Nick Scott. They've re-signed Michael Thomas, Jermaine Pratt, Trent Taylor, Travion Williams. Their losses include Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Samaje Perine, Hayden Hurst, and Eli Apple. Just want a quick shout out. I'm so happy that Eli Apple is actually still showing as available, meaning nobody likes Eli Apple, which makes my heart smile. But
Yes.
overall, what do you think happens here? Addition of Orlando Brown is obviously great, but definitely lost some talent. Think the Bengals got better or worse?
I think it's in the middle. It's kind of how I feel like with the 49ers. Um, I like the Orlando Brown signing, but you need more than just him. I know they're gonna do it. I hope so. The Bengals, like, if it's just not one of the most obvious thing. It's like the most obvious thing in the NFL is that you got to get an offensive line for this team, and this team might just win 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls. They have the perfect team put together right now. They have a great defense. Well, not great. They got a good defense that can easily be improved, by either veterans coming in or them drafting. But you got a beautiful, beautiful offense. You got the pieces at your receiving core. You got your quarterback. You're probably going to have to replace Joe Mixon. But um, it's you got to get an offensive line. Joe Burrow's the man. He's the guy. He went to snowy Buffalo and he came out a winner. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, he came a couple of bad ref calls from beating Patrick Mahomes again. Um, you just get an offensive line. That's going to be the difference between an A and an F. I think right now it's in the middle because it's not over yet. But if they don't continue to bolster this offensive line, I'm giving them an F. If they do, I give them an A plus. Because I think that's literally the difference between will Joe Burrow be a champion in Cincinnati or will he go and get it somewhere else?
Yeah, I like where you're at with a lot of this. So the thing is, I think the Joe Mixon piece is going to be an important piece of this offseason as to whether or not
Yeah.
he's able to play in the upcoming year. I think the piece that the Bengals are missing right now is the running game. They didn't have any 1,000-yard rushers last year. Frankly, I think they, in total, including Joe Burrow's 250 yards rushing, might have rushed from 1,500 yards overall, which is not what you're looking to end up totaling across several talented running backs with Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon included. And, the running game just wasn't there. The quarterback was beat up again. So you go out and you sign Orlando Brown. He had to be your priority. I think that might have been their guy, the one that they really wanted. The guy with Super Bowl experience now, a guy that's, had some ups and downs, but clearly talented. That's a huge get, but they let Samaje Perine walk. You don't know if you have Mixon, and the only running back you bring in is Travion Williams. You got to do better than that. And there's plenty of running backs that were out there or are out there even. But you miss out on Foreman, you miss out on Jamal Williams, you miss out on Miles Sanders. These are guys that could have brought that offense up. Whereas now I see the talent on the offensive playmakers go down here. Don't know how much longer they have left with all three of the receivers, with Boyd, Higgins, and of course Chase. So I don't know. I don't know where this offense is really going. I don't know if Orlando Brown really makes it as much better as they needed it to be. And then they certainly lose out on the back end. So I do think this team gets a little bit worse here. Not tremendously. It's something that they can overcome just by continuing to grow what they already have. But overall, I don't see the Bengals really maintaining this unless they get continuous steps up from what they already have. So that wraps us up. Really, any closing thoughts as we move a little further into the offseason?
The Raiders are at it again, doing stupid shit. That's just the headline that you just need to know. Every second of every day, you can just trust that the Raiders are doing some dumb shit. Now they got Jimmy Garoppolo at the lead. If you thought that the Raiders couldn't get more, Raider-ish, they let Derek Carr go and replace him with Jimmy G. And I'm looking forward to it. I mean, if the Raiders end up starting the season good, you're going to see me, really rooting aggressively for the Raiders to do something, because you guys know me. I'm a big believer in the memes. So that's the closing take there. Oh, and also I think the Giants are stupid for committing to Daniel Jones, but that can be a topic for another podcast. But that's really all I got, Bill.
Yeah. So I like the Giants moves, if I'm being honest. We'll talk plenty of Giants coming up. They did exactly as I said in the previous episode: signed Jones, tagged Barkley, maintain that piece of the offense, which are the only two good pieces. So got a decent little core. A lot of work still needs to be done. My bold prediction as we take off here: Colts, who signed Shane Steichen off of the offensive staff of the Eagles, recently grabbed Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, your guy.
We might have magic. Minshew Mania might be back in action, baby. That if it happens.
But there's just no Jeff Saturday, because can you imagine a team with Jeff Saturday and Gardner Minshew? That would have been nuts.
It's not too late. It's not too late. That staff can still fill out. If we get Saturday back as, hey, maybe a center. Who knows? So we'll see what happens in Colts land. But this wraps up another episode 11 in the books. Big thank you to all our listeners out there. Appreciate you sticking through us during our little time off after the Super Bowl, as Tom collected himself, as we collected our thoughts about the offseason. But we're back at it, and we'll be back at it for the whole offseason, essentially. We're going to break down every team. So if we didn't get your favorite team today, then stay tuned. It will come up.
Yes. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, share. We got a lot coming. I know we took some time off, but there's still a lot of amazing stuff that we got in store for you guys. And we appreciate all the love. We're growing. You guys are growing with us. So we love it. So thank you. Appreciate you guys, and have a good night.